My name is Adelaide, and I used to believe that everyone deserved a second chance, a fresh start, a new face if they truly needed it. I was a master theatrical makeup artist, a true artisan of illusion. My small studio in the quiet town of Oakhaven was filled with the scent of latex, spirit gum, and the promise of transformation. I spent my days sculpting, painting, and molding, crafting everything from fantastical creatures for local plays to hyper-realistic prosthetics for film students. I loved the magic of it, the way I could help someone step outside themselves, embodying a character, or even finding a new confidence. My life was simple, focused on my art, and I found profound satisfaction in bringing visions to life. I saw beauty in every line, every shadow, every subtle shift of expression, and my hands were skilled at recreating them. My biggest joy was seeing a client's eyes light up when they looked in the mirror, seeing themselves as someone entirely new, yet still themselves underneath it all. I believed in the power of disguise for good, for storytelling, for self-discovery. Then Victor walked through my studio door. He wasn't a usual client. He was handsome in a way that felt almost too perfect, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He said he was an actor preparing for a demanding, highly secretive role, a performance that required absolute anonymity. He wanted a mask, he explained, not just any mask, but one that was utterly indistinguishable from human skin, a living face that could fool anyone at close range. He spoke with a smooth confidence that was almost hypnotic, painting a picture of an artistic challenge unlike any I had ever faced. He offered an exorbitant sum, far more than I usually charged, and his flattery was relentless, calling me a genius, a visionary. I felt a prickle of unease, a small voice inside me whispering that something was wrong, but the sheer artistic challenge, and let's be honest, the money, was too tempting. I pushed my misgivings aside, convincing myself that it was just another project, an opportunity to push the boundaries of my craft. Victor became my nemesis without me even knowing it, slowly poisoning my peaceful world with his demanding perfection and unsettling requests. He was a problem I hadn't known I was taking on. I began work on the mask, pouring every ounce of my skill into it. Victor was a meticulous client, appearing almost daily, scrutinizing every detail, every pore, every hairline. He brought in photographs, not of himself, but of another man, a man with a soft, unassuming face. He insisted the mask had to be an exact replica of this face, flawless, breathtakingly real. I found myself becoming increasingly uncomfortable. The way he spoke about this performance began to sound less like acting and more like impersonation. He would chuckle darkly about how someone was going to get what they deserved, how he would disappear, becoming another person entirely. I tried to subtly add small imperfections, a slight asymmetry, a hint of texture that would give it away as an illusion. But Victor noticed everything. He would run his gloved fingers over the mask, his eyes narrowed, and demand corrections, his voice hardening with a thinly veiled threat beneath its smooth tone. "Perfection, Adelaide," he would say, "absolute, unforgiving perfection. Anything less would be a waste of my investment and your prodigious talent." I started to feel trapped. The mask, a beautiful horror, grew under my hands, becoming more real than some faces I knew. It felt alive, watching me from its stand, its painted eyes seeming to hold a malevolent secret. I tried to research Victor, to find out more about his acting career, but there was nothing. No credits, no agency, no mention of him anywhere. It was as if he had simply materialized to commission this sinister work. I tried to back out, to tell him I couldn't continue. But he just smiled, a chilling, humorless smile, and calmly recounted details about my life, things only someone who had been watching me closely would know. He mentioned my aging parents in the next town, the small loan I had taken out for studio renovations. He didn't threaten directly, but the implication was clear. I was in too deep, and he knew how to make me regret any attempt to escape. My peaceful world had become a cage, and I was the bird building my own bars. The problem wasn't just the mask anymore, it was Victor, and he was growing larger and more menacing with each passing day. My initial attempts to sabotage the mask or escape the project had only tightened his grip, proving to him that I was worth watching. My nights became restless, haunted by the mask's lifelike features, by Victor's cold eyes. I started feeling a strange, phantom itch on my own face, a sensation of something tight, something pulling at my skin. I began to suspect the mask was not for a performance, but for something far darker. One afternoon, while Victor was out, I found a hidden compartment in the lining of his expensive briefcase which he had carelessly left behind. Inside, I found not a script, but a stack of documents: a deed to a house, bank statements, and a detailed schedule of a man named Elias Thorne. Elias Thorne was the spitting image of the face I had been meticulously recreating on the mask. The papers also contained a police report, a minor incident of fraud where Elias had been the victim, and Victor had been the perpetrator, albeit under a different name, a name I recognized from an old newspaper clipping about a con artist who had vanished years ago. The truth crashed down on me with the weight of a stone. Victor wasn't an actor. He was a phantom, a manipulator, planning to steal Elias Thorne's identity, perhaps even his entire life. The performance was a complete takeover, a total erasure. He wasn't just getting revenge, he was replacing someone. My hands trembled as I realized what I had created. This wasn't art. It was a tool for profound evil, a weapon that could steal a man's very existence. I felt a wave of nausea, guilt washing over me. I had perfected a nightmare, built a cage of flesh and illusion for an innocent man. I had helped a monster. All my subtle acts of rebellion, my internal struggles, had been useless. Victor had me, and I had created the instrument of his cruelty. I stared at the completed mask, flawless, eerily beautiful, hanging on its stand, waiting to steal a soul. It looked back at me, its expression neutral, yet I saw in it the cold satisfaction of Victor, the terror of Elias, and my own crushing failure. I had sunk to my lowest point, a helpless accomplice to a crime I abhorred, certain that all was lost, that the mask would soon claim its victim. The chilling knowledge of Victor's true intentions, his capacity for cruelty, froze me to the bone. I had made his weapon, and now I had to find a way to make it turn on him. A cold, clear resolve settled in my heart, replacing the fear and guilt. I remembered an old, experimental polymer I had developed years ago, a super adhesive designed for highly detailed, temporary prosthetics that had been rejected because it bonded too strongly, almost melding with the skin, extremely difficult and painful to remove without causing damage. It was a failure then, but now it was my only hope. Victor wanted perfection, a mask that would be indistinguishable from skin, that wouldn't peel off. I would give him exactly that. I knew he would need a final fitting, a dress rehearsal before his grand disappearing act. I sent him a message, a cryptic note about a crucial, final adjustment, something that would elevate the mask to absolute, unquestionable reality. He responded with eager anticipation. He arrived at my studio late that night, a predatory gleam in his eyes, clutching the mask case like a hungry beast. He was ready to become Elias Thorne. I led him to the fitting chair, my heart pounding a furious rhythm against my ribs. The studio lights were dimmed, casting long, dancing shadows. For absolute realism, I explained, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, I've developed a new application method. It ensures a perfect, seamless bond, especially around the edges. It will feel like a second skin, almost impossible to detect. Victor's eyes gleamed with avarice. "Excellent, Adelaide," he purred. "I knew you wouldn't disappoint." Perfection, as always. He placed the mask onto his own face, eager to see the transformation. I carefully applied the modified adhesive around the edges, blending it with his skin. He closed his eyes, savoring the moment. But this wasn't the usual adhesive. It was the experimental polymer, subtly altered with a corrosive agent that would not dissolve the mask, but make it fuse irrevocably, painfully, with the wearer's living tissue. As I stepped back, Victor opened his eyes, looking into the large mirror I had set up. He gasped, not in delight, but in shock. "It's incredible," he whispered, running his fingers over the jawline of the mask, "truly incredible." But then his fingers snagged. He tried to peel a tiny edge near his temple. It didn't budge. He pulled harder, and a faint, thin line of red appeared where his real skin met the mask's edge. His eyes widened, a flicker of panic replacing his smug satisfaction. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice no longer smooth but laced with alarm. It's stuck." I met his gaze in the mirror, my own eyes cold. "You wanted a mask that wouldn't peel off the skin, Victor," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "a face that would be impossible to detect. I merely delivered. This mask is designed for permanence. It is not coming off, ever." His face, now half Victor, half Elias Thorne, twisted in horror. He clawed at the mask, tearing at the edges, his manicured nails scraping uselessly. The edges began to fuse, slowly but surely, with his own flesh, burning, stinging, melding into one agonizing, irreversible surface. He screamed then, a raw, primal sound of absolute terror and pain as he realized the full, horrifying truth. The mask was not just stuck. It was becoming him, his own face slowly being consumed by the deceit he had so eagerly embraced. He thrashed in the chair, a living sculpture of agony, the beautiful, perfectly crafted face I had made now stretched taut over his screaming, contorting features. He ran to the sink, splashing water on his face, trying to scrub it off, but it was useless. The more he pulled, the more it adhered, fusing deeper, ripping away slivers of his true self. He looked in the mirror, and the face that stared back was a grotesque fusion, Elias Thorne's placid features now contorted in Victor's raging, trapped expression. He had wanted to steal a life, to wear another man's face, and now he was permanently imprisoned behind his own chosen lie. He was forced to wear his mask of deceit, not as a disguise, but as his new, agonizing reality. He would forever wear the face of the man he tried to erase, a living monument to his own monstrous ambition. Victor's screams eventually faded, replaced by broken sobs, then a chilling silence. He collapsed, defeated, the mask now fully integrated, a seamless, horrifying part of him. I watched him numb. He was a perfect example of his own twisted creation, a person whose true identity was forever trapped beneath a fabricated facade. The police found him days later, wandering the streets, raving incoherently, utterly unrecognizable. He was deemed mentally unstable, a danger to himself, and institutionalized. He tried to explain his predicament, but his words were garbled, his story unbelievable. No one believed him, not with that perfectly calm, unassuming face staring back at them. They just saw a man in profound psychological distress, not a man literally trapped behind a mask he could not remove. The mask I had made, designed to steal a life, had instead stolen his own, leaving him a living ghost, a nameless face in an asylum. My life in Oak Haven never returned to what it was. The studio felt different, haunted by the memory of Victor's screams, by the image of that fusing, agonizing mask. I couldn't bring myself to sculpt new faces, to create new illusions. I closed the studio, retreating from my art, from the world of masks and transformations. My hands, once so skilled at crafting beauty and illusion, now felt tainted, forever marked by the terror they had wrought. I tried to move on, to forget, but some things leave an indelible mark. Sometimes, when I look in the mirror, my own reflection seems to shimmer, the edges of my face appearing momentarily too smooth, too perfect, as if a faint, translucent film has settled over my own skin. I sometimes feel a phantom pressure, a slight tightness around my jaw, a subtle sensation that reminds me of Victor's final, agonizing transformation. It's a chilling reminder that the mask I created didn't just consume him, a piece of its dark magic, a fragment of that irreversible bond, rubbed off on me. I see now that masks aren't just for hiding, they're for revealing, sometimes revealing the monster in others, and sometimes the darkness in ourselves. The mask that wouldn't peel off the skin became a part of Victor, and perhaps, in a way, a part of me too, a permanent, unspoken understanding of the terrifying power of deceit and the irreversible consequences of revenge.